Welcome back to Tiny Grimes Games, and I'm here today to talk to you about something pretty exciting for Solforge. I know a lot of people are looking forward to that fall UI update, the update that's going to save Solforge. And to be perfectly honest, while a nice, fresh looking UI, it'll be great. What really needed to happen for a lot of people who played Solforge for, say, a year or so and then stopped playing was a change to the card pool. While the UI, it'll be nice to have something really great, the card pool needs to change, and guess what? As of by the time this releases today, later today, not just a couple cards, a huge part of the card pool is going to be changing. So let's take a look at what's going on here. For myself, I know I'm cautiously optimistic. When Solforge announced that this was going to happen many months ago, there was some sort of insinuation that one of the goals was going to be to make levels 1 and 2 a little bit closer, and 2 and 3 a little bit closer, sort of narrowing the gap so you don't have these crazy scenarios where you go on 2.1, 2 level 2s, and on 2.2, 2 more level 2s, and then you snowball and run away with the game. Same thing on level 3. In the past, it had been you draw 1 or 2 great cards at 3.1, your opponent strikes out, game's over. And it led to some really frustrating losses. Don't get me wrong, this wasn't always the norm that would happen, but when it did happen, it felt terrible. And so it was thought to be that one of the goals might be to just go ahead and drop the power level across the board on the 2s and 3s and just kind of, just drop everything a couple points in attack and defense. And that didn't happen. And at first glance, when I was looking through the cards, I was a little bit disappointed, thinking, they kind of missed the boat here. But the more I look at it, the more I'm impressed at how precise all the changes are. What they did really, instead of hitting every card, is they basically looked at every card and said, should this card be tweaked? Not just the overpowered cards, but just most of the card pool got a little bit of change here or there. And where it got changed quite a bit was a lot of the cards had their defenses dropped, especially on level 3, somewhat on level 2. And then a lot of cards had a boost to their attack, especially on level 1. And so I think what the goal of this is to accomplish is to have cards that will more easily die on level 3. So it's okay if you have a card, on 3.1 you put out a good card. It should do a lot of damage. That should be the point. But having a situation where it can be traded off, say, for 2 level 1s is really helpful. You get an advantage, you get a 2 for 1, but it doesn't just instantly win you the game. So I really like that part. A good example of this is a card like Oxidon Spitter. In the past, it was a 5/3. It's not that good of a card. And now moving forward, it looks like they've changed Oxidon Spitter to be, I believe, a 7/3 on level 1. So now you can play it as a bit more of an underdrop. It actually will, it has a tool, right? It removes armor, but then it can also actually trade up with something, say, even a decent level 3. If we look at a card like Frostmane Dragon was just a bonkers card, right? It had no downside. It was just a bananas card. And they went ahead and changed some cards like this that were just great at every single level. And now the Frostmane Dragon is going to be a 6/7, so they buffed him on level 1 a tiny bit. Level 2 is going to be a 9/10, so he's still great. But then on level 3, he's only a 13/14, so he's substantially easier to kill. He's still pretty darn good. He has a good ability, but he doesn't level up like every single level is bananas. They took him and went bananas, pretty darn good, but also handleable. He still has mobility 2. There's a good chance he's gonna, move over, hit you for 13, but you should be able to kill him even with, say, 2 Oxidon Spitters if you get completely screwed on level 3. So these types of changes overall are really good. Another way that they went in and made level 3 cards a little bit easier to handle is to take some of the removal spells and just make them better, make them easier to deal with or easier to make happen. So Grave Pact in the past have been incredibly limiting. No one would play Grave Pact. It's just a terrible card. However, moving forward, it's now going to be on level 1. It hits a level 1 or 2 creature. So if on 2.1 you get screwed, well, you have your Grave Pact to help you out, even though it's underleveled. On level 2, it's going to hit level 3 cards. And on level 3, it's going to be free. So that's going to be amazing. So Grave Pact suddenly went from unplayable, junk pile to a really useful card. Something like Dreadbolt, they took away, sort of the limiting factor of it. Now it's just kills a card of equal level, which isn't quite as great as something like Grave Pact, but it's still pretty cool. And they took a card like Vieric Ebon Skull and gave it, on level 1, it can destroy a level 1 card. So basically, a lot of the removal has gotten better. So with better removal that can be used under leveled, with stronger level 1s, with weaker bodies on level 3s, even if the attack stays the same, if the defense is not as good, this should theoretically maybe help fix some of the problems. Best part, is that they finally, I want to say finally woke up. I know it's kind of rude to say, but let's be real. Wagyu has been ridiculous since the moment he was released. Since the day Wagyu was released, I said he shouldn't have breakthrough. If he didn't have breakthrough, he'd be fine, right? You could buff him. It would take quite a bit to trade him. You could do cool tricks where you move him around. Well, guess what? Levels 1 and 2 won't have breakthrough anymore. So Wagyu will still be good. People will still complain about Wagyu, but he won't be disgustingly good. They went ahead and made Rage of Kadris what it should have been, an overload card. You get to use it once. So you put 3 in your deck. 3 board wipes is bonkers. You shouldn't get more than 3 board wipes. So Rage of Kadris still good, but eliminates... What they've done is gone through and eliminated like these weird, oddball ways of winning that are annoying. No one likes to lose to Wagyu. No one likes to lose to Rage of Kadris. Worst way to lose is Stasis Warden, because he stalls out the game forever. But guess what? They went ahead and took care of that. He now only can make your own guys have Defender. He can't hit other guys, so that's pretty interesting. You can still do some cool stuff with guys with activated abilities, but you can't just lock down the board, stall out the game forever, and try to win that way. And, everyone's biggest problem, Ice Grasp, is now only going to do 2 damage. So, in one fell swoop, they went in and cleared out a bunch of junk that shouldn't have been there in the first place, made it more reasonable, dropped a whole bunch of level 3s down to reasonable range, bumped a ton of level 1 cards up. Another example is Delpha Chronosculptor. She's going to be a 7/7 on level 1 now. That is exactly what you need out of a card like that. Now, her ability, even though you don't get it till level 2, it's not a complete waste early on. Before it was really difficult with her because it would be like, well, I get a 5/7. It just doesn't do enough, especially under level. It's just completely waste. Under level now, a 7/7 is not that bad. She's only a 9/9 on level 2 and a 14/14 on level 3. Again, sort of going with this idea that, bodies need to be more reasonable on level 3. So on level 1, higher attack, level 3, lower health total. I really, really like this direction. It has me really interested and juiced to play tomorrow. I will say, though, while there's all these positives, right, there's a big negative here. And it's not a definite negative. It's a worry. It's me as a worrier. My worry is this is a huge undertaking. They're not, rebalancing a set. They're rebalancing the whole pool at once. And Stoneblade doesn't have the best track record in the past of making flawless, meta call balancing decisions. Hopefully now they've been able to take all of this knowledge that they've gained over many years, right, and put it into practice and say, okay, we've figured this out. We know our cards better than we did when we first started. This is not something this is not some accusation I'm making. This is something they've said themselves, that now that they have all this information, they can do things better. So this is their opportunity to do things better, to get it right this time around. We're all rooting for Stoneblade here. So if it comes off well, this is going to be huge. I know it's going to, just even if it's a complete disaster, for about a month, it's going to be really fun, right? Because it's basically like saying, hey, we deleted all the cards and printed them all again. That's basically what you're saying, which is really, it's a fun month while the meta sort of sorts itself out. It's a huge card pool. But then after that, it's really going to come down to how effective was this process. And I'm going to say the card that worries me is a card like Iron Maiden. Iron Maiden didn't get touched. Iron Maiden is bananas. It was bananas before. It's probably even better now, because now the meta game is possibly going to be slower. Maybe it's not going to be slower. I don't actually know. I have no idea what the meta is going to look like. This is what's so exciting. I have some decks in mind, but I don't know. But Iron Maiden is still bananas good, and for them to not hit a card like that seems ridiculous to me. Like, if it's going to be breakthrough, consistent, and do all this damage, 2020 is plenty. 2020 is more than plenty. That card probably wins the game on its own at 2020. 30-30, it's just ludicrous. The only thing I will say is with all the removal, maybe we're going to be fine. Maybe there's just enough cards that have removal that we're going to be fine. But I am saying that card worries me, and that's just the one card that popped out to me. Maybe there are going to be others like it. And for those of you who remember the good old days when Zemus reigned supreme and couldn't die, guess what? He's back. Zemus can't die again. I'm telling you, my first deck. How many awesome removal spells do we have? Oh, all of them? It's going to be all the removal spells. Zemus, level 3, 5 Zemuses across the board like it's set 1 again. So look out. If you see me on the ladder, be ready for 5 Zemuses and have an answer. Before we go, one other really, really great change was Relic Hunter. Now, you're going to have your Relic Scout, but the breakthrough's not on the Scout anymore. Now it's on the Relic Hunter. So they really did take a ton of problematic cards and hit them. And took a lot of other cards, a lot of cool cards that we haven't seen before. I'm not going to spoil them all right now because you can go through and discover them today, tomorrow, whatever it is. But Solforge is going to be a lot of fun for a little while. A lot of fun. And I think we've all got our fingers crossed that it's not just for a little while, that this new meta that comes out of it is going to be really healthy. There's going to be interactive decks all over the place. We're all going to have a good time. And there's going to be a new UI update as well coming in the future. And boy, oh boy, things could be really looking bright for Solforge. So if you've been sort of out of the loop and thinking like, I'm done with that game, for whatever reason you have, it's time to start coming out of your slumber, looking at Solforge again and saying, we got some really, really interesting stuff happening. So, till next time, see you later, Tiny Grimes Games.